Why not? We've been everywhere else today.
Yeah. Oh man. We're back here with Adeliz Garcia.
So I guess that was my mistake. I guess Arvin didn't write it down wrong. So
Wow.
sorry, man.
So Mike can't read and Arvin doesn't know ethnicity.
I'll take back all those mean or hurtful things I said, man. But anyways, hey, what about since we were talking about the Quran being buried, what about that mosque in New York, man? What's your take on it right now?
Mike?
Well, it is close to home, but I still think you gotta allow them to build. But I mean, you know, we're not that close to the epicenter where it all happened. But I know that protesting that it's right near the Trade Center, right?
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, you know, you figure New York is so
Anything
small,
is, yeah.
everything is near. And it's like I told Mike, you know, he asked me, because he says, it's funny, he came by over the weekend, he's, you know, my godson is his latest child of 9 or whatever he has going on, we can't keep count anymore, but we were talking, he says, oh, we haven't talked in a while, what do you think about this? I'm like, save it for the show. You know, my thought is, at some point, much like we're talking about the guy with the Quran, I'm not saying they shouldn't build it. I'm saying, yeah, this is America, you know, we got to get past it, but at some point, I think you draw a line, and just because of the sensitive nature for what it seems to be, and again, I realize it's not really a mosque. It's going to be a cultural learning center that's going to allow it. But if there's that much fervor, and again, it's getting the media in the press because it's an election year, then either postpone it or move it a little bit.
You know what's really funny too is, you know, I just recently moved back down here from the high desert in Apple Valley, and they had that issue with, you know, it seems like it's always the Muslim and like the Hindu temples, because, you know, they had a big giant Christian temple, you know, or church put up on one of the main highways, and then there was plans for a Hindu temple like next door, and they made them jump through so many hoops, you know, and it is a form of racism or fear of, you know, whatever it is, but you know, they made them jump through so many hoops, do all these environmental studies, and they couldn't. They said, "Oh, it's going to bring extra traffic." Really? You just put a 3,000 seat church in, but now it's not. You know, this one is like 1,500, 200, you know, 2,000. I mean, you didn't plan it ahead of time for enough parking, and it ended up getting built, but they just made it. They dragged it on, and you know, it is a form. It's a fear. It's still fear of not knowing what these other religions are about.
Oh, that's what it is.
I don't think it's fear. I think it's ignorance.
Yeah.
How can you be afraid of something you know nothing about? It's just ignorance.
But ignorance is fear.
Right.
I mean, we've always
a lot
talked
of people
about
don't put
that.
in the time, you know, because, you know, I used to be afraid, you know, like of Iran and all those places when I was younger growing up. Didn't know anything about it. But, you know, when I worked for the Metro MTA, you know, I had some really good friends who were Persian. He told me all the history, you know, on how they broke up and their two different factions and everything. And it's very interesting, you know. And then, but they talk with such passion. And he even has a couple brothers who are very angry, leaning more to the, you know, the women should be covered up, and when I've gone to dinner with them a couple of times, and the women are dancing, and the two brothers that are off to their side are just so upset when the women are out showing off, you know, and you know, they're just like, you know, like they shouldn't be doing that, you know. He goes, look at, such and such is mad, you know, and it's just funny because they're leaning a little bit towards.
But that's in any culture. I mean, Latins. I mean, at least we've still got Latins in today's modern world who think that women should be barefoot pregnant at home, subservient. Oh, but now that we need 2 checks, well, then she should be out working, but then come home, be barefoot pregnant and subservient. So it's in all ethnicities, and I agree that ignorance is a problem.
They have the right to build that temple, that center there. I mean, it's just like, okay, in Oklahoma City, so we cannot build any churches near the Oklahoma City bombing site because Timothy McVeigh was a Christian. And he was professing that he was doing it for his religion as part of everything else he was talking about. But so, no churches?
Again, this is part of the insanity that is who we are.
Okay, so no churches in Oklahoma City.
No, but you know, nobody's going to raise a stink about that.
Exactly.
Because Christianity, if you bash Christianity, all of a sudden, you become a bad guy.
Right. Yeah, but there's more Muslims than Christians in the world.
Absolutely.
So
just not here.
We don't know that. For all we know, that. I wouldn't doubt there's more Muslims in America now than there are Christians. But, you know, again, I don't. Like I said, I'm not one of those people on a Sunday afternoon, you know, and I'm sure I'm going to pay for it in the afterlife. I'm watching the Cowboys lose.
That's bad.
Well, at least you know what you're watching ahead of time. You know the outcome, man.
But what I'm saying is that, you know, we've reached a point where these people and their, you know, the, what do you call it, the ultra-conservative fanaticism. But the one thing I wanted to get to where I thought Mike brought up a point, or how the news shows, was it Fox that kept hammering until they found out their major...
Yeah, one of the guys, they couldn't, they knew that it's going to get built regardless, okay, because it's going to happen. They own the building, they own the rights. So then they decided they were going to try to discredit the guy that's getting all the money together and, you know, doing all this stuff.
Hold that thought. While you're finishing, you want to bring in the food and we'll try it on the air? And
yeah, definitely.
Great.
As long as it's not hot.
Why? It's not a problem for Mike and I.
So he,
Or Arvin. I think Arvin's a hot,
so they
spicy.
couldn't discredit the guy. So then they go after their money. Well, where's he raising his money? Where's he raising his money? It's
Yeah.
terrorist organizations. Well, it turns out that one of the biggest donors to the mosque, if you will, is a guy that's the majority owner of the biggest shareholder of News Corp.
Oh,
Fox, who owns Fox.
Oh man.
So these morons are in the air showing pictures of this guy who they obviously did not know was basically one of the guys that signs their checks. After that was exposed by the media, they stopped going after where the money's coming from. It's just stupidity. It's all it is.
That's
You know, it's fear of the brown man.
Brown and dark brown.
I was going to say brown and dark brown.
And I don't know why, man, because what they're building, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans over there. There's a lot of brown people over there.
Yeah, and that's what's sad because you know that if they're building a temple or a cultural center or whatever, you know there's a lot of Muslims there as well. Just like in the high desert, a lot of Muslim and a lot of Hindu. You know, so they need a place to go worship or like you say, go learn about these religions. You know,
I'm all, live and let live. Okay, I mean there's always going to be hatred. There's always going to be people who have all these other agendas. And but you know what gets me? And I tell them, I don't know where these people have the time for that kind of passion and hatred and just want to go after all of this stuff. If somebody's driving through the neighborhood